The relationship between Zuko and Katara starts off rocky, but it doesn't stay that way. Soon enough, it becomes one of the cornerstones of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Katara has been looking for peace, and Zuko finally gives it to her. Katara's dark side has crept into view multiple times throughout Avatar: The Last Airbender. That is nothing new. But as she grows in strength, then that dark side becomes more dangerous. She's not just a wannabe waterbender anymore. She's come a long way from the early days of the show when she could hardly move a little bit of water. Now she's a master. But while she has grown on her travels, her experiences on these travels have not given her reason to believe in the human race. Quite the opposite. As she has traveled, she has stared right into the darkness of humanity. She has stared into the soul of this war-torn world and seen what people are capable of. They take over the world, sparing nothing. Now, it is true that she has seen examples of the Fire Nation's brutality from her youth. Some of her earliest memories that we see are about Fire Nation soldiers raiding her village, looking for the last waterbender, aka her, and the only reason she survives is that her mother sacrifices herself to save Katara. But while that's incredibly important, it's not the only thing that matters. If what she had seen on her travels was good and moral and showed a promising, light-soaked world, then I think she would have reason to believe that, hey, maybe the world isn't so bad. Fire Nation did terrible things to me, but the world isn't as bad as all that. But what she sees is quite the opposite. What she sees is that it is indeed as bad as all that. In fact, it's even worse. The suffering she's experienced is very individual to her, yes. It will always be something that she can't quite forget. But she also sees how universal it is. Everyone has stories like hers. Even people in faraway lands. Lands that she hardly knew anything about at the start of the show. While she does not condemn the Fire Nation in as harsh terms as Sokka, that's not saying much, considering that Sokka calls a bunch of Fire Nation school children depraved little fire monsters. Compared to that, Katara appears nice, but her emotions run a lot hotter and a lot darker than she is willing to admit, even compared to Sokka. This is perhaps most evident when she is in the catacombs with Zuko at the end of Season 2. Zuko is to her the face of the people who killed her mother, and she holds nothing back. Now, at this point, she knows very little about Zuko. She does not have the information about him necessary to really judge him personally, but judge him she does. She just unloads on him. She gets very dark and very menacing. She says that because he's the Fire Lord's son, war and conquest and hatred are in his blood. In her mind, this paradigm is very fatalistic. Zuko is the son of the Fire Lord, therefore Zuko carries out the same evil and the same darkness and the same lack of concern for other people as the Fire Lord. She doesn't see him as a person. She sees him as a symbol of everything bad about the Fire Nation, and just this vessel into which to just pour all her hatred and rage. And it's a lot darker than anything we see from Sokka. Sokka tosses these things off, but you don't really get the sense that he means any of it deep down in his spirit. He doesn't believe that all Fire Nation people are evil. And we see this when he accepts Zuko in episode 312, the Western Air Temple. While he's a bit confused and bamboozled and uncomfortable about the idea of adding Zuko to the team, He doesn't rage about it. Whereas Katara, when Zuko tries the first time to say that, no, just because I'm in this family does not mean I'm necessarily malicious, Katara will not have any of it. She just flies into a rage. She means every word. She adopts this very Manichaean, very dualistic view of good and evil. Now, even though she accepts Zuko for a bit before he betrays her, this dualistic view of people, this dark side in her, still remains, and she can only vanquish it with the help of Zuko. Despite the objections of the other members of Team Avatar, despite their outrage, she goes on a mission with Zuko to find the man she hates the most, the man who killed her mother. And she does find him, and she's prepared to kill him, but as she goes to do it, she feels the rage ebbing in her. It all seems so pointless and empty and meaningless, and so she walks away. This, I think, is what Zuko intended to happen. Although, he would not have stopped her from killing that man. I say he intended this to happen because it fits his character. Zuko got what he wanted only to learn that he did not want it. He became accepted by his father and he became the crown prince again, only to find himself disgusted by this image of himself, and so he left. Katara in this episode has much the same thing happen to her. She has the chance to enact vengeance. Unlike Aang and Sokka, Zuko does not try to get her to suppress her dark side. He allows her to make the dark and bitter choice and try and carry through with it, and as she does that, she discovers that it's not the choice she wants. This would not have happened had Zuko not joined Team Avatar. Now, I'm not saying Katara would have just become a villain had she not handled this dark side. She would have remained very sweet and very tender and very helpful and very empathetic, but without confronting that dark side, she would still be in its thrall. She would still be in its command, and as such, she would likely see it flare up at very inconvenient times. Just this outpouring of all the emotions, all these unpleasant emotions that she would, in better times, pretend don't exist. And how would Zuko respond to never meeting Katara? Now, I want to clarify that it is entirely possible for Zuko to not meet Katara or any of the other members of Team Avatar. And I want to make clear that when I say meet, I mean actually meet. I mean sit down and talk, not just Zuko's attempts to travel around the world and capture the Avatar. I don't really consider that meeting the members of Team Avatar. Now, the show would suffer definitely if they never met, and if Zuko never joined Team Avatar. Having these two halves of the show, the Team Avatar half and the Zuko half, coexist without any overlap, such as Aang's talk with Zuko in episode 113, The Blue Spirit, or especially Katara's long conversation with him in 220, The Crossroads of Destiny, or any of the other conversations Katara has with him throughout the series. Were it not for all this, the show would be very awkward and disjointed. It would not be nearly as impressive a work of art as it is. But that does not necessarily mean Zuko wouldn't redeem himself. His redemption is not based on Team Avatar. He joins Team Avatar after he's already gotten redeemed. Similarly, even without the help of Zuko, I believe Team Avatar could still defeat the Fire Lord. Now, there is the one issue of Aang not knowing how to redirect Ozai's lightning if Zuko doesn't teach that to him, but you could just as easily have Uncle Iroh teach Aang that technique and have those two characters meet. in Season 3 before the confrontation with Ozai. It's surprisingly not that difficult to construct a version of this show where everything turns out exactly the same, except for Zuko never joining or meeting Team Avatar. But, again, that would be a version of the show that would be much more inert. We've already discussed how this affects Katara, so now let's consider how it affects Zuko. Even if he succeeds in turning away from Ozai and redeeming himself, I don't think his story would be particularly satisfying. What is redemption if others don't accept it? Now, I don't mean that rhetorically, it's a real question that the show does not provide a clear answer to. Is redemption more internal or is it more external? If the people you wronged don't accept you, are you still redeemed? Both internal and external redemption are important to the show. If you pressed me, I would say that the show believes that redemption is redemption, even if other people don't accept that redemption. Setting that aside, you also should work to try to get the people you've wronged to accept you, not only because they deserve it after what you did to them, but also because without that, redemption is hollow. Even if redemption is more internal than external, it does not satisfy you, practically, if you're still isolated, if people still hate you. Even if you have achieved redemption in an abstract, theoretical sense, it's hard for someone to be that happy about it because they're still despised. Because Zuko not only redeems himself, but tries to join Team Avatar and convince them to accept him, he finds friends. Real friends who actually care about him for him. Not because he's the Fire Lord, but because he's proven that he cares about them, and because they think there's value in having him on their team. I'm not sure Zuko has ever had that kind of a friendship before. You could argue maybe his relationship with May, but then again, May does kind of turn away from him, at least for a while, when she believes that he's betrayed his country. With Team Avatar, it's different. That they know Zuko's background makes them far less likely to accept him, but they still accept him anyway, because of what he does, because of who he has become, and what he's proven that he's willing to do. The group dynamic shifts and morphs to include Zuko. That Team Avatar is the opposite of a rigidly structured group, is evinced by how quickly the group morphs to include Zuko. Aang becomes Zuko's little brother, Sokka becomes the slightly older brother. Katara is still the surrogate mother of the group, but Zuko becomes the surrogate father. He's earnest, but he's also goofy and awkward. He keeps Aang in line and makes sure Aang studies what he needs to know, but he's not an authoritarian about it. And he always keeps the spirits of the group high. They mock him, and he takes it, but they always accept him. And Katara especially accepts him after they reconcile at the end of 316, the Southern Raiders. She, and really all of Team Avatar, make him feel like he belongs. When Zuko breaks down before he goes to see his uncle, experiencing this existential crisis in which he wonders if his uncle will forgive him, Katara is there to comfort him. She does so willingly and unreluctantly. When he asks Katara to accompany him to fight Azula for the throne of the Fire Nation, Katara agrees without hesitation, although she knows that the situation could be fraught with mortal peril. Katara doesn't care about that. This group helps each other out. They care for each other and support each other, not because they expect to gain anything for that, but because that is the communal ethic of that group. But though it's communal, it's also very personal. The relationships are very specific and nuanced. If Zuko had never met Katara, he would not have had anyone to comfort him when Azula went mad. He would not have had anyone to empathize with him. And to know that seeing Azula breaking down was for Zuko this haunting, despondent experience, even though he didn't like Azula. She's still his sister, and he still cares about her. It's hard for anyone to really understand that, but Katara does. She gets it, and she's there for him. Their understanding prospers, and their understanding runs deeper than words can express. Anyway, thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like and comment and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can and you want to see more videos like this. Keep watching Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's a brilliant, thoughtful, evocative show. It's so empathetic and tender. It really is a brilliant work of art, and I am so glad it's getting all the attention it deserves. Let's hope it garners more acclaim in the future. And let's also hope the live-action show is good. Fingers crossed, though I doubt it. But even if it's bad, we'll still have this lovely show. So anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.